Hello, and welcome to another 30-Minute Thursday. My name is Amit. It is 2 p.m. in the still beautiful Pacific Northwest, and we are live on Facebook. I hope everyone's staying safe. I hope everybody's staying healthy. I hope everybody's staying sane. Really important that we stay sane. Sadly, it feels like a very, very insane time. And as much as I try to avoid being political in my 30-Minute Thursdays, I mentioned in my promotion for this that would be talking about war and the economy, and I will do my best to try to keep it together and try to provide you guys with context as best I can, provide you guys with information as best I can. Clearly, nobody knows what comes next, and very few people know exactly what's going on right now. So everything that we're talking about is hypothetical, it's potential, it's possible, it's likely, probable. I don't know, guys. I don't know. And I apologize. I haven't slept very much since I woke up on Saturday and found that what was going on in Israel, my home country, where my family still lives, where my brother and his family lives, where my parents live, where my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and my nephews and all of these people, nieces. It's just it's hard for me to put into words what kind of what kind of emotional toll and what kind of just heavy heart the people of Israel and Jewish people all around the world are suffering right now. Not just Jewish people, for that matter, people of conscience, people who have seen videos, have seen photos, have seen things that they probably wish they'd never see, and that they wish they could forget and erase from their memories, and unfortunately are scarred with those images for the rest of our lives. And I also carry that. And so as I said, I'm sorry, and I apologize if we're moving into uncharted territory here. This is not the intent of my 30-Minute Thursdays, and typically I'm always upbeat and optimistic, even when I'm beating down on the Fed and our crazy spending government and our leadership and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm still optimistic in spite of all of it. I'm still optimistic that we will see better days, but we're seeing some really bad ones right now. And to everyone who has family in Israel or who is connected to people in Israel in some form or fashion, I pray for all of us, and I pray for everybody in harm's way in general. The Palestinian people as well. They have my sympathies, many of them. They don't deserve what they're in the middle of. They're stuck in many cases by leadership, if you want to call it that has stolen all the aid that they've received and used it to enrich themselves, used it to fund their war machine, and created a life of misery for these people. And I truly, truly feel for them. In any case, in any event, war and what does it mean to the economy? Let me try to stay on topic. And if somebody does have questions, I don't see anything showing up on the screen. It's a Facebook Live, but I'm doing it through Zoom. And so you guys know me in technology. Maybe there's a way to see comments and to see questions and things like that. I don't know how to do that at the moment. And so if you are commenting or asking questions, which I welcome, by the way, I will do my best to answer them when I'm finished with the live. I will answer in the comments in the Facebook section. I'm also open to having conversations with you guys offline. I've spoken with quite a few people just because of my unique background about church groups and other people who are just curious what's going on in this world. Where is all this coming from? I'm happy to do that as well. So please, if you're interested, reach me offline or reach me online, and I'm happy to help in whatever way I can, or to help you guys make sense of this in whatever way I can. Personally, As I mentioned, I've got family that lives in Israel. I have a nephew who is what we call a lone soldier. He grew up in the United States. He felt very, very passionately about volunteering for the Israeli Defense Forces, and he did that about a year ago. He entered into voluntary duty and asked to be placed in a combat unit, and he received that placement, and he is squarely in harm's way, and I pray for him on the regular, as they say. I also have cousins. I have other relatives who are no longer in active duty in the Israeli military, but they have been called back. Their reserve units have been called back. The bulk of the Israeli fighting force comes from reservists who do their 2 years or 3 year or 4 year stint, depending on what their military specialty is, and as 18-year-olds, and then they separate and they go usually living their lives, going to school, going to travel, getting a job, developing a career, starting a family. And then when something like this happens, they're called back to active duty, and they drop everything. They leave their homes, they leave their families, they leave their jobs, they leave their communities, and they put themselves in harm's way for the country and for their families, because Israel doesn't have the luxury that the United States enjoys, which is separation from the world by two massive oceans, friendly nations on either side of our border, where yes, we have some immigration issues, but heretofore we've not experienced what has happened in Israel. So when my friends' families, when they leave their homes, they are in fact defending their homes. They're not going for some sort of foreign adventure or war. So it's very personal. It's very, very intimate, and it's very, very close. And it's very hard for people who have never experienced this to actually understand what it's really all about and how it really happens. My wife asks me, when your family's in a bomb shelter, how do they go to the bathroom? Like, basic stuff. Bless her heart, she doesn't have this background. Thank God she didn't have this background. The bomb shelter experience is not like you're there for 24 hours or for days on end or anything like that. Usually you run in there immediately when you hear the sirens, and then after a few minutes, maybe an hour at the most, you hear the all clear. You get a lot of communication through your cell phones now, and you go back to whatever it was you were doing before the sirens went off. So it's hard for people to understand this on and off, on and off. It's just a crazy, crazy world. But right now, and I'm not going to share any information that would be sensitive, and certainly I don't have any information that's sensitive. There's a lot of operational security around what's happening, but there's also a lot of open source information from briefings from the Israeli Defense Forces and from news organizations from around the world. So at the moment, there is a bombardment of Gaza, which is roughly 25 miles by 5 miles. It's a rectangular piece of ground in the southwest part of the region of what was Israel. Israel's not been in Gaza, has not had anything to do with Gaza since 2005, when the country unilaterally withdrew from Gaza and pulled all settlers, all people, all material out of that region and left it for the powers that be to govern it and try to create their best version of a state, whatever that looks like. And it's not been the best neighbor, let's put it that way, to be mild. And so they are going after military targets that are located in civilian neighborhoods. And this is just a nightmare scenario. Even more nightmarish is the hundreds of miles of tunnels that are excavated underneath the city, that have concrete reinforcement, that have electricity running through there. Now the power's been cut off, and so I don't know exactly how those things are being run, but the militants that occupy and that govern that region are putting their people in harm's way. They do this deliberately because it makes it very, very difficult to have any sort of repercussions against them for their actions and for their policies. But in any event, that is one of the fronts that Israel is dealing with at the moment. A second one potentially is in the northern part of the country where it borders with Lebanon. There is a terrorist organization there called Hezbollah. Hezbollah has been funded, and Hamas as well, has been funded by various actors in the region, most notably Iran, which is not a friend of the United States, and not about the Iranian people. I've got a lot of friends and colleagues who are from Iran, who have made it out of Iran to the United States and to other countries. Some people are also unfortunately still stuck in that country, and they are being oppressed by their own government and put in harm's way there. But for those of you old enough to remember the suicide bombing of the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut, Lebanon, in, I believe that was 1983, it might have been 1982, 250 plus Marines killed in their barracks. That was done by terrorists funded by Iran. And they're still there, and they're still there in southern Lebanon. And so this could be a second front of a bigger sort of evolving war that is coming up. And Israel has, in fact, declared full war against the terror state that is Hamas. And that is the first time since 1973 that Israel has declared war. Interestingly enough, almost 50 years to the day that the Yom Kippur War started when I was 3 years old. And that was October 6th of 1973. This happened October 7th of 2023. In any case, there's a second potential front that is brewing over there. A third front would be with the nation of Syria, which is on the northeast of Israel, separated from Israel by the Golan Heights, which Israel does occupy and has annexed into its land. And there's other countries in the region that could become involved, not the least of which is Iran. And they are quite capable. They are very savvy. They're very technologically capable. And the war efforts these days, the war machine these days, is about as much about technology as it is about triggers and explosives. I mean, technology runs a lot of things in our world. And despite my failures with technology, as I joke, the idea of a technological battlefield is definitely part of the entire military totality. I'm losing words here. So this thing could spiral very, very quickly, and not just involving Israel, but also involving the United States, where we've sent 2 aircraft carrier groups now into the region. That's a ton of firepower. That is a ton of military. That is a lot of boats in the area. That is a lot of jets overhead. Now, the United States has ostensibly said that this was designed to limit other countries or dissuade other countries from becoming involved in taking this opportunity to air out their animosities toward Israel. I don't know what's going to happen next, right? I mean, this is the problem with things evolving, with the fog of war, with just this much stuff in a confined place. It's a very dangerous situation, and it's a very explosive situation. And we have to look at it, first from the human cost, but this is mostly a conversation about real estate and interest rates. And so let me kind of pivot a little bit and just say that war is one of those unique and weird sort of things that has all sorts of impact on the economy, all sorts of impact. Forget about the human costs, which are the most near and dear to my heart. But because I talk about real estate and mortgages, let me let me kind of pivot a little bit as I try. There are some people who believe that America exited the Great Depression as a result of its participation, of our participation in World War II. And maybe that's correct, and maybe that's not completely correct, but there is a feeling among policymakers and among economists that the just huge amount of war material and spending and things of that nature necessary to fight a war like that was helpful to the Great Depression. I don't know. I don't know exactly, but I'll tell you this much. If you're going to fight a war, you had better win a war, or else it's going to be devastating to your economy in general. And so the notion that, we're beating the drums of war for economic benefit is horrific at the very least. And I hope it doesn't get to that. But we do have some issues that will come from that would be a real problem, because you have to finance wars, right? I mean, we are a nation right now, the United States, that has a ton of debt, 33 trillion, 34 trillion, and rising quickly every day. And that's just based on our run-of-the-mill expenditures, our everyday spending, not, fighting an actual shooting war with planes and ships and people and munitions and things like that would need to be made. I mean, you only have so much stockpiled, and after that you have to turn the factories on. You have to tool or retool the factories. I mean, total war and big military endeavors like that don't happen overnight, and they drag on, and part of that has to do with the fact that the means of production have to be retooled and reconstituted, and so war can be incredibly inflationary and incredibly expensive, and we have to borrow that money from whom I have no idea, but we have to borrow that money in order to build those planes and those artillery shells and things like that. We're not sitting on a pile of cash. I mean, I guess we are, but it's all flowing downstream like money always does. And so, I mean, factory workers have to be paid, and they take that money and buy food with it. And those farmers have to be paid, and they take that money and buy grain with it in order to feed the cattle, and so on and so forth. And that's just a really small and simple sort of chart or flow chart as to how things go, and who are we going to borrow money from right now, and how are we going to pay farmers exactly, and there's a lot of questions there, not the least of which is, where does our fuel come from? Because at this time, most of our energy is imported from countries that might be impacted by what's going on in the Middle East. They are in the Middle East. They are the oil producing nations, and they happen, many of them, to be in the Middle East. Some of them are, others are Russia, which we're not very good friends with at the moment, and Venezuela, which we're also not very friendly with. So the US has to figure out where its energy is going to come from. And in the short term, if things start escalating, or if things start seeming like they're escalating, right, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of talking, a lot of pushing, a lot of, think about, I hate to bring it down to this kind of base sort of example, but think about two guys squaring off in a bar fight, a street fight, or whatever it is. There's a lot of what are you going to do about it, and pushing and shoving and posturing and things like that. And that happens between countries as well. That happens in regional conflicts or global conflicts as well. And so in that posturing and in that evolution of time, things can go crazy on our prices, right? I mean, gas or oil can skyrocket higher, and that is inflationary, and that's going to be bad for bonds, and that means that interest rates go up, and people may stop spending money on consumer goods because, number one, we're in a war, number two, they're economically already tapped out. And so what happens then? Companies that make those goods start losing money, start reporting negative earnings on their stock, or negative earnings on their books, and their stock values go down, and your portfolio goes down, and lots of things. Everything is tied together. Everything is part of the same system in one form or another. And it's all at risk right now, guys. I mean, this is a very tenuous situation, and something that I'm not 100% sure. I don't think anybody's 100% sure what's going to happen next. Are we? We're okay on time. So, in the short term, people, institutions, governments, what have you, tend to flock toward what they refer to as safety in investments, and U.S. issued debt at this time is still considered the more safe investment. So in theory, we should see a lot of institutions and a lot of governments and a lot of investors in general buying bonds, whether they come from the US government, the US Treasury, or whether they come from mortgage institutions like what we create and sell to Fannie Mae to then distribute into the public supply. So that as people buy those bonds, God willing, the price of the bond goes up and the interest rates come down. That would be great. But there's still a lot of potential inflationary pressure out there. There's still a lot of other things. In fact, the Consumer Price Index for the month of September came out today, and it showed that inflation ticked up just a little bit on a lot of things that we need every day, like food and energy and shelter, and things that we can't go without. And so inflation is not yet finished. Has been coming down, and has been really roughed up by efforts that the Fed has made and is making, but everything's in flux right now. Everything's really potentially changing, and so we don't know what's coming next. And so what that means for the housing market, man, I still have clients writing offers, and I still have people looking for homes and trying to get pre-approved. We still need a place to live. And fortunately for us in the United States, we are very much insulated from a lot of these things. We're not completely safe, though. We do have bad actors in this country as well. We do have people that may want to harm the United States based on our foreign policy, based on other aspects of this country, and so that's out there too. And I encourage you guys, as you know, I do teach self-defense, and I do recommend a kind of defensive posture, eyes open, looking around, believing what you see, avoiding places that you just might not want to be in general. And that may or may not come to this country. We've had it before here. And so, anything's possible. But in the meantime, the good news is that buyers are still buying homes. There's still demand for properties here. People still need a place to live. People are still growing their families. People are still doing those things that necessitate a move up, right? I need to buy a bigger home for my growing family, or I need to buy a smaller home because my significant other and I are no longer needing a 2-story home. We're older now. We don't want to be hiking up and down the stairs. We want less to maintain. There's a lot of things that drive residential real estate need, and that need is still very strong. And so from that perspective, that's great. The market is really competitive. There's a lot of very, very interest rate sensitive shoppers right now, and it's difficult to make deals happen. It truly is, but it's out there, and we will make our deals happen as well, and we'll help our clients as best we can, and we'll help our countrymen and our allies as best we can as well. But I don't know what's coming next. It's really tense, and right now there is a ton of support internationally for Israel and its cause. There's a lot of countries and a lot of people here and overseas that see the rectitude, the righteousness in what Israel is trying to accomplish here by eliminating this terrorist organization. That it may change in the coming weeks. I hope it doesn't, but war is ugly and things happen, and it's not an easy thing to see. And unfortunately, with social media now, especially, we're going to see a lot of things that I don't know if we're really prepared for it emotionally, psychologically, and that may turn people away from these things and may create even more problems. This is not a good thing in any shape, form, or manner. And I wish it wasn't here, but we are here now and we have to deal with that. And there will be economic consequences. There will be stuff. I don't know exactly what that stuff is going to look like, but I'm here to answer your questions along the way. I do have some interesting perspectives. That doesn't mean that I'm completely right. Doesn't mean that I'm completely wrong. Doesn't mean that I'm clairvoyant and know what the future is going to bring. But I've been around a little bit and I've seen some things. And so if you guys want to talk offline, that's great. Please reach me. If you want me to talk to your church groups or your friends or your family or what have you. I mean, I think the more we communicate, the more we dialogue, the better it is for people to have a better understanding and try to make heads or tails of this situation. And then, of course, if y'all want to talk about business, we still have to make a living, right? I mean, this is the thing that we do. And so for you real estate brokers, you people out there who are looking to buy homes, sell homes, there's still a lot of stuff going on. I'm going to send an email out to all of the real estate brokers I work with about changes that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have made to their condo policies. They're going to affect all of us, whether you work only with sellers or you work with buyers and sellers. There's huge changes coming up in the condo world, and we need to be aware of that as well. So there's just a lot, guys. There's just a lot. And the best way to handle that is to communicate and to be with one another and to help each other make it through all these difficult moments, make it through all these unsettling times, and just try to make hide or hair heads or tails of whatever information we can kind of process together. So with that, it's just about 30 minutes, man. It's amazing. I'm gonna wish you guys a wonderful day. The sun is still shining out there over my shoulder. It's beautiful here in Seattle, at least for another couple of days before we get into real autumn. For everyone who is affected by this, who have family that's affected by this, my prayers are with you guys. I pray for everyone, and I pray for their safe return, and I pray for a resolution to this that leaves us better than we were before it started. There's a lot that I can say. I try to keep it as even keeled as possible, but I'm praying for everybody, and I would appreciate your prayers for my family, my relatives, my friends, my countrymen, for the United States, for Israel, for all of our allies, and for all of the people who risk themselves to protect us and to give us the opportunities to do the things that we love to do. So with that, I will see you guys next Thursday, God willing, with hopefully better things happening. And I wish you all very, very much peace and that you are well. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.